The following two stories are not related in any way. They are random. It is just a coincidence what you are about to see.
Yeah, that's a ticket. You bet it is.
But first, a neighborhood in fear, residents worried for their safety.
As spring break winds down, anger is building, and it's not likely that things will calm down anytime soon.
I see them everywhere. Please get out of my yard.
Tina Grantham is upset. This year's spring break may have been the biggest, but for her, it was the worst.
It's really upsetting because they never used to come on this street. And they never used to go on that street back there, and they're upsetting the whole neighborhood. And I want some protection because I can't go through this every year. I'm not going through it every year anymore.
Her home on Pine Grove Avenue is just yards away from one of the biggest gatherings for spring breakers in Biloxi. When she checked on her home Saturday, people were barbecuing in her front yard.
And my husband didn't want to cause a problem with the people. You know, he figured if we would call the cops, it would make everybody mad. And so we just left crying and upset.
Neighbors in the Briarville subdivision are upset that spring breakers have begun to spread their party into their neighborhood with intersections blocked and streets trashed.
We're a prisoner in our own house. I mean, I couldn't even get out, can't get in, so, you know, what can we do? We're stuck.
Sue Stone says she was worried this year.
In the past, they've been pretty reasonable, but this has been scary this year. We don't have any problems with anyone having fun, but, you know, have some respect for the people that have to stay here.
I don't mind if it's down on the coast. Everybody's allowed to enjoy the beach. I love it down here. I enjoy the beach, but we shouldn't be blocked into our neighborhood feeling threatened.
During the height of the spring break activities, Eisenhower Drive was impassable. Tanya Garrity, who lives in an apartment complex there, was frightened. Not for her, but for her husband, a recent transplant patient who needs regular hospital care.
If I'd had to rush him back to the hospital, it wouldn't have happened. He would have had to stay here. He would have died here.
This video shows Federal Hill after Tuesday's closing bell at Digital Harbor High School. A commotion coupled with kids jumping on cars when it appears a neighbor begins to try to record video on her cell phone. Another student approaches and throws an umbrella at her face. Neighbors say this kind of thing has become normal.
When we contact police, police says that we need to stay inside when kids get let out of school around 3 o'clock if we don't want to get hurt.
And when this happens on a weekly basis, that's not just a few. And if it is just a few, well, then there are no consequences for what's occurring to them.
Two neighbors who spoke to us on the condition we hide their faces say they contacted the school principal, who said she was disappointed, but to contact city police.
Kids being kids is not causing tens of thousands of dollars of property damage and physically injuring people and threatening people's lives. That's not something even a moderately bad kid does.
I'm terrified for my property. I'm terrified for my life. I can't park my car anymore in the area.
Security camera footage shows car vandalism on Grindle Street in late February, too. Baltimore police Sunday night say the juvenile who threw the umbrella was arrested, the only arrest from Tuesday's events.
I feel like I'm a prisoner in my own house because if I need to get out, I need to make sure those kids are not around.
When I was a younger man, I was a bartender. And I remember one time in San Diego, I looked down the end of my bar. There was only one guy there. He had a crumpled hat on, and, well, I don't think he would mind too much if I said he appeared to be a little bit in his cups. So I went down to him and I said, "Excuse me, sir, has anyone ever mistaken you for Patrick McGowan?" He goes, "Hi, that's me." Well, McGowan, since gone on, after that, went on to become a pretty big movie star. He was in Silver Streak with Richard Pryor. He was the bad guy in the Braveheart movies. But I knew him then, and my friends and I from high school, we all knew him as the star of a TV show called The Prisoner. And it was kind of a freaky show about this secret agent who resigns, then all of a sudden he wakes up in this village where he doesn't know what's happening, and he's the prisoner. Anyway, so he asked me to help him do some research on a script he was working on. I said, "Sure, I'll help you out." He wanted me to find him a semi-cloistered, self-sufficient monastery. So I found him a couple of those. And I said, he goes, "Well, what can I pay you?" I said, "You have to tell me how The Prisoner, the TV show The Prisoner, ends." And so anyway, we actually hung out for a couple days. He also wanted me to take him bar hopping in San Diego to some of the rougher places. So I think I ended up taking him to a couple places that may have looked a lot rougher than they actually were. So I don't know, we didn't become best friends, but we got to be buddies. And he wrote me a poem on his napkin. I told him I used to read books of quotations. And he thought that was like the best thing he'd ever heard. And I said, "What's your favorite book?" He said, "The Outhouse." So that's what he said. Anyway, so if he were around today, and I'd have to say, "Mr. McGowan, I think I have a good sequel for you, for The Prisoner." All over the country, there are white people living near black neighborhoods, in and around black neighborhoods, where they're living in neighborhoods where once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, their town becomes a center of some kind of black party, whether it's Black Spring Break, Black Bike Week, Black Beach Week on Memorial Day. There's some stuff going on at Fresno, another Black Beach Week. I think it's called the Halfway Run. So Mr. McGowan, in these houses, white people and Asian people, young people, old people, gay people, straight people, Eskimos, Amish, they all feel prisoners in their houses. They feel prisoners in their houses because if they go out, they feel, rightly so, that they are going to be harassed, threatened, victims of assault, and even murder. Do you think that would be a good show, Mr. McGowan? Maybe it would be. Maybe it wouldn't be. Mostly because it would probably make a lot of black kids angry.